Hey, you guys, welcome back to the channel and the podcast. But listen, I want to get into something real quick because when it comes to Married to Medicine, the hypocrisy is so outrageous. But I want to talk about this scene with the men because it's so ironic that we have sort of a similar situation this season that they had last season, but they didn't want to call out the fact that Heavenly was downright wrong, and more importantly, Heavenly's husband did not want to call his wife out for the terrible things that she said about Dr. G, who we know is no longer on the show. And I find that ridiculous that Dr. G and his wife, who is one, a doctor, and two, his new wife, Letitia, is actually married to medicine, but they still got this heifer quad on married to medicine, and this nigga who allegedly was stealing cars sitting right next to Curtis. But that's neither here nor there, or maybe it is here because the hypocrisy is unreal, it's outrageous. And I want to talk about this scene because Toya called out the fact that big this this big Grinch right here who only seems to come around when there's a party, a group trip, or there's a men's outing, but you rarely see him interacting with his wife is weird. And when he gets called out for something, he wants Dr. Eugene to put his wife in check. But it was okay when Dr. Damon didn't put his wife in check last season when Heavenly was out here on social media alleging that Dr. G was a pedophile and some other things that could have jeopardized his medical license. But let's get into it, guys. Thanks for stopping by the Being Beautifully Honest podcast and channel. Thanks for being here, being subbed. If you're not, hit the button. And if you're listening on YouTube, hit the like. It's like walking in the room and hitting that light switch. Let's brighten up the place and get into the real of reality TV.
Talk to me nice, talk to me honestly. Look in my eyes, don't let it fall on me. Say you're a good guy, make me believe it. Don't wanna hear it, I wanna see it. See how rewind, when we rewind, feels so nice.
Okay, so let's get into it. So on this most recent episode, the husbands, they're having their scene and they're talking about they're trying to give advice to the newbies to the group. One of the guys asked a question about, what do you do like when your wife is wrong about something, and somebody else said, well, you support them. And then Curtis, he wants to pipe in and talk about, well, you got to know when to check your wife because a lot of times they're not right about things. And when they're wrong and it's affecting your public image, and these aren't the exact words that he used, but pretty much this was the gist of it, then you got to check them because we can't allow this to happen. And first of all, husbands and wives, and it was so funny because in the scene when they were talking about husbands and wives and they showed Kirk. I refuse to call this nigga King. But anyway, even if that's his last name, we're not in the military. I'm not calling, listen, no, I'm not doing it. But anyway, they put the subtitle underneath, well, not the subtitle, but they put, the words up there, and it says Quad's boyfriend. The subtle shade as a trip to me is kind of funny because they're talking about husbands and wives, and then they put underneath, even though he wasn't even talking, they put the words underneath there, Quad's boyfriend. And I might try to put that little screenshot up there, but it's funny because the husbands, they're talking about this stuff, and Curtis, he's speaking, got his chest out, sitting up straight, and he wants people to defend him as if Toya committed a crime by stating the obvious. He has been too comfortable being touchy feely with other women. He was cheating on his wife. And that scene, whatever season that was, I don't remember if that was season 3 or 4, when he grabbed Toya and pulled her down on his lap. Toya looked uncomfortable and shocked, but she also didn't want to, like, I guess, offend him by saying anything. So she just moved carefully to get up out of his lap. But here's the twist when it comes to this. When Heavenly spent time on social media and on her YouTube channel suggesting Dr. G had a reputation for questionable behaviors, then it was okay. Where were these same husbands? Where was this passion then? Where was the so-called bro code or honor code then? I didn't hear Curtis speaking up for Dr. G. He was just sitting there looking like a dummy as he usually does. But I want to play this clip. I'm just going to play the audio. I'm going to put I'm going to share the screen, but I'm not going to play the video because Bravo likes to play games, which it pisses me off. But even with the audio, I am doing this under the fair use provision that allows limited use of copyrighted material without permission for purposes like criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. And I'm not sharing this content as if it is my own. And I'm just doing this for the purposes of critique and reporting. But let's get into it, guys. So let's get into it, guys.
When our wives start to put stuff out there in the media that's untrue about somebody in this group.
I think that Curtis has his hands on a couple of different ways on our show before. So I think he should keep his hand in his pocket.
I agree. We got to deal with that.
Oh, yeah.
And I heard Eugene just say, I'm going to support her whether she's right or wrong. We can't do that. If I know my wife is putting something out there that's not true,
You'd never do that.
I ain't going to sugarcoat
Okay, well, I don't have that experience because my wife ain't putting nothing out that ain't true. When they asked you about it, you made a comment. But it wasn't like a comment that wasn't
It wasn't a lie.
So I can't be like, Toya, you wrong for making this comment in New York. You weren't wrong.
Well, we know you didn't respond to it. You saw it and you didn't respond. So it's going to end. I'm usually not the one that will start a fight, but the fights that I have had, I was there to finish them.
So you're like, you have threats right now? I mean, what is that about? And I'm not even going to play any more of the clip because it really is no need to do it. But the fact that he sat there and said out of his big mouth that when our wives are wrong, we need to call them out on it. But last season, it was like a similar scene. Dr. G was confronting Dr. Damon about the things that Heavenly was saying about him that could have affected his professional medical license. Nigga, like, what does Curtis do? Like, how was that even going to affect him? Because pretty much everybody who watches Married to Medicine sees him as a cheater, even if he's not still actively cheating on his wife with the same woman he was walking with through an airport holding hands with. Most people believe he's still cheating. And even if he isn't actively doing it right now, people still see him from what he did years ago. So we saw the picture of him with his hands around Heavenly's waist. We saw his hands on Toya's waist, pulling her down into his lap. So what are we talking about right now? But when Dr. G confronted Damon about it last season, and Damon was like, you're not going to talk to my wife any type of way. You're not going to talk about my wife. He was defending Heavenly. Curtis was quiet. He wasn't saying anything about, look, we can't sit here quietly, idly by, standing and, when our wives are doing something wrong, we need to call them out on it. No, he was quiet about it. He was in the crowd of the men actively shutting out Dr. G. So I find the hypocrisy ridiculous, but it really is what it is when it comes to these people, especially on Married to Medicine, because this is what we do. It's the mysterious, you know, selective outrage when it comes to becoming a part of this so-called brotherhood. It's the, you know, it's the convenience of, oh, when it's about me, then I have to speak up about it. And it's really mysterious how they're more concerned about protecting Curtis's image when we don't even know what the F this nigga does. But when it came to Dr. G, who actually is a doctor, and how that could have affected his professional license and dealing with patients and different things like that, they were quiet. Damon wanted to get upset with Dr. G because he decided that he didn't want to take on any of his or any more of his patient referrals, but Damon didn't want to check Heavenly on her behavior and how that could have possibly affected Dr. G. And they stood by and watched when Quad was drunk, when she was saying the things, the terrible things that she was saying to Dr. G and Letitia last season. And they stood by and they supported Quad and her drunkenness and her allegedly changing VIN numbers on luxury vehicles boyfriend, and stuck by them on the trip and to stay on the show. So, what are we really talking about right now? Toya didn't lie. Eugene said out of his mouth that, I'm going to stand by my wife, whether she's right or wrong. I mean, that's what he said. But I feel like that's more of a figure of speech because we've seen Eugene check Toya, but he does it in a respectful way. And I don't think that there would have been anything wrong with Damon if he did the same thing when it came to Heavenly, checking her in a respectful way. Nobody was asking him to curse her out or dumb her down in front of, the other people, or to make her feel less than or anything like that. Or it's definitely not to be abusive or intimidating, but it's just like, no, like just let her know, look, that ain't right. Especially when she's to the point where she's calling the nigga daddy. Hopefully she respects his word. But I'm saying when I watched this, I was like, this is exactly why these people on this show get on my freaking nerves. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you see the hypocrisy? And listen, I'm not here to debate anybody about Dr. G and what you feel like he was when he was married to Quad, because I could go into that if I felt like it, and I may do that later, but I'm definitely not doing that on this video because this ain't about that. But I stand on what I said about him. And this is not me sitting here championing him and just all 100% out supporting him, because I'm not saying he may not have been insensitive in things that he said to Letitia or to Quad when he was married. But I'm sorry, you're not going to convince me that he was beating Quad's ass and she was in an abusive relationship, because that was the narrative that she wanted to paint after she was no longer with him, because she wanted to not only continue to stay on the show, be seen as a victim, and that she really needs this platform and she needs to be here because this is all she really has right now. But she also wanted to demonize him and to have him blackballed. And that ain't right. It ain't right. But you guys let me know what you think about this scene in the comments. And Dr. Curtis with his mountain-sized mole on his face having a nerve to feel like he need to get Toya in check when all she did was speak the truth about him.
Thanks for being here, liking, and subscribing. I'm Beth, just being beautifully honest. So until next time, I wanted to keep it brief, beautiful, and now I'm going to say bye.